Hello, my smartest artist. Today we are going to learn some painting techniques and how to use watercolors in the art room. So first thing I want you to do is put a big X through my first two boxes. We are not going to do these first two techniques, but I am going to show you how to use stickers or tape, wet on dry, dry brush, and wet on wet techniques. But before we can get to this, we need to learn how to use paint and the paintbrush in the art room correctly. So, first thing you need to do is know that this is your handle of the paintbrush, this is your bristles, and this tip is your tippy toes. And the reason why that is important is a paintbrush is like a ballerina. Ballerinas dance on their tippy toes. No one wants to go to the boot scootin' booty. When you do that with your paintbrush, it gives your bristles a noogie, and that's not good for your paintbrush or your paper or your paints. If you do it on your paper, it could rip and put holes in your paper. You'll squish your paints. These are not liquid paints as far as like tempera or acrylic. You're not scooping the paint. Yes, dancing like a ballerina on her tippy toes. So the first step to use watercolors is you need to use the secret ingredient. The secret ingredient to watercolors is in its name. The secret ingredient is water. So, first thing you need to do is add some water to your paintbrush and say, "Wake up, red." Now, in order for me to switch colors, I need to splish splash, I was taking a bath, and gently wipe the side. "Wake up, orange." Now, I don't want to mix the orange and the yellow. We'll get muddy colors, so I need to splish splash, I was taking a bath, and rinse out my paintbrush. Now, we're in music class, right? Oh no. When you do that, not only are the friends sitting around you going to be in the splash zone, but you're going to get splashes on your paper. So when you're rinsing out your paintbrush, you're going to sing, "Splish splash, I was taking a bath." And then you're going to gently wipe the bristles on the side of your water bucket. You can even use your fingers or a paper towel to style the new hairdo so we don't have a noogie and you have a nice point of toes to dance on. So what you need to do is wake up your watercolors and then make sure your ballerina is always dancing on her tippy toes. No one wants to go to the boot scootin' booty and give your paintbrush a noogie. If by accident you give your paintbrush a noogie, just dip your paintbrush back into the water and give your paintbrush a hairstyle. Okay, so once again, we're going to practice using the techniques of watercolors we just used, and now we're going to use them in different ways. So the first thing I'm going to do is you're going to have tape at your tables. What you're going to be able to do is do a resist, just like when my mom would tell me to clean my room and I said, "I don't want to." I was resisting. I didn't want to do it. So wherever you put the tape, the watercolors will not stick because the tape is resisting the color. So I put this tape right here, and this is just an experiment, so just to see what it does. I put the tape on my paper. I woke up my blue with a little bit of water. We don't want our watercolors to drown. And then carefully, I'm just going to paint in the box. Using my tippy toes, we're a ballerina. We're not doing this and giving our paintbrush a noogie. Noogies aren't good because it rips the paper, put holes in your paper. The paint isn't as smooth, and it also damages the bristles of your paintbrush. So noogies are never good. So we're going to let that set up for a second. Now, wet on dry. This one is a two-step process. So I'm going to show you how we're going to use wet on dry, and it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to use green now. Since I used blue and now I want to use green, I have to splish splash, I was taking a bath. And then wipe off the side of my brush. My green has a little bit of water in it. It's all ready to go. It's woken up. So I am going to do my leaf. It's pretty wet. Now I didn't go back into the water because I'm using the same color. So I'm going to let this dry. While I let this dry, I'm going to use dry brush. I'm going to change my colors, so what do I need to do, class? You're right, I need to splish splash, I was taking a bath. Give my paintbrush a bath. And when I'm doing this, once again, dancing on the tippy toes. I'm not giving my paintbrush a noogie in the cup. Wiping off the side. Now dry brush is when just the tip of your paint, you're not pushing down and giving your paintbrush a noogie. But dry brush is when you're just using enough water to make the paint pliable or make the paint able to be moved around by the paintbrush on your paper. You have more control when you have the dry brush. This is for all those details. Okay, so that's dry brush when you have a semi-dry brush. Now wet on wet is actually splish splash, I was taking a bath, where you take water first and you paint your paper with water. I'm going to show you what it does. We're not crazy. I know you can't see it. So we have water on our paper, and now what you can do, wake up purple. By just using the tip of my paintbrush, I'm tapping it on the water, and you'll see it start to bloom like a flower. Splish splash, I was taking a bath. And you're going to see that the colors, and I'm not mixing it together, I'm allowing the water to do the mixing. Almost gives it a cool tie-dye effect. And this is wet on wet. Now, if we would do the straw, we would kind of do the same thing, except we could use the straw and blow all of these different swirls and designs into our wet on wet. But we're all wearing masks in the art room, so we're not going to do the straw. Now, this is dry enough. I can go back and peel off the sticker or the tape, and you're going to notice that wherever the tape was, the watercolors. And I'll show you a little trick. When you're peeling it off, you want to go at an angle so you're not ripping your paper. And this is just plain computer paper, so you might have a little bit of a rip. But wherever your tape was, the watercolor did not stick to it. That's a resist. It's resisting the tape, is resisting the watercolors from sticking. So we have one last thing to finish, our wet on dry. So now that we have our watercolors dry, I can go back over it with maybe a different color or even the same color, and we're going to try the dry brush technique. So wet on wet was the wet paper, really wet watercolors, and then the dry brush is when you have a little bit more control. So what I can do with my dry brush now is add texture and more design to my leaf. You don't have this kind of control when you are using a wet on wet. But watercolors are a great medium or material to layer, meaning you have to show some patience and take your time and wait in between colors or in between layers to allow them to dry so they don't get mixed up and muddy. So we have how to use our paintbrush. We first wake up our paints with the water, our special ingredient, always making sure your paintbrush is dancing on her tippy toes, never going to the boot scootin' booty. No one wants a noogie. Rinsing out your paintbrush in between colors. Splish splash, I was taking a bath. We're not in music class. We're not a bunch of drummers. So carefully wiping over the side, styling the dew if you need to, and using the tippy toes to paint. We know the resist with tape, wet on dry, dry brush, and wet on wet. Now, my friends, please begin